Hello, everyone. I would like to get started. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. It's 7 o'clock. I'll introduce myself in a minute, but first I'd like Commissioner McCool to open up the meeting. Thank you.
Good evening, all. To you that I know and you that I don't know, welcome. I'm glad to have you here as part of the process of building good community relations between the city and between our residents. Our city manager, along with staff, have started a series of meetings. We have done strategic planning. Animal control will be next. It's been a hot topic. And enforcement services to try to get residents familiar with processes that go on, listen to what your concerns are, right, about how processes are, and to get you a little familiar with how things work, what we can do to improve. Admittedly, I'm a new commissioner, but I've been active in the community for a few years. And code enforcement and resident relations haven't always been great, but we're having honest dialogue about that now. And we're working as we go along. We have good people, we have good leadership, but as we all know, that there's always room for improvement, right? Taking into consideration what residents' true concerns are. So in trying to do that, also separating kind of fact from fiction, trying to understand what's important to you, trying to get you to know us, and being able to reach out. It's been important to have these meetings. So Mr. O'Grady here is going to lead this meeting, and then he will have questions afterwards. I ask that you remain respectful in your dialogue, and know that we will keep it honest and open. And if there's anything, I have cards. If there's anything that I can do for you, you can reach me by email or phone. I am always here for you. And so is staff. Just let me know what you need, okay? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. O'Grady. He will do introductions. We also have with us this evening, along with enforcement staff, Mr. Peters, our city manager. If you don't know him, he is sitting in the back there in the purple shirt. And then we have Mr. Ron Paradise back there, planning, building services, who is sitting back there in the shirt and tie. So I'm going to let Mr. O'Grady take it over. Thank you for coming out. And as I said, this is continuing. We'll have continuing dialogue. Let me know what you need, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Once again, my name is John O'Grady. I have 33 years as a servant leader in government. Mr. Peters asked me to come in a few months ago with a fresh pair of eyes to look at code enforcement and a couple of the other areas that within the city that he wants me to look at. And we're starting on code enforcement. So a few house rules before we go forward. We are going to, each supervisor is going to take a part of code enforcement. We're going to go from the beginning all the way through to what the future looks like. There's a question mark on the future because obviously this is your code enforcement and we want to hear from you. This is our 5th of 7 town hall meetings as we go forward. At the end of the presentation, we'll take questions. We ask that if you have individual specific address type questions about a neighbor or somebody down the street, wait till the end. We will take that as a complaint, and then we will go through the process. We'll send somebody out there tomorrow or the next day. But we still want you to ask the question. So if it happens to be a parking question or it happens to be a debris question, we'll answer it on the 10,000-foot level to give everybody a better idea instead of answering individual questions. And go from there. So thank you, and we'll go ahead and get started. Compliance with local ordinances is what code enforcement's all about. The Deltona Code Enforcement group is city employees. They're your employees. They take ordinance and regulations passed by the city commission, handed over to the city manager, and that's what they're doing. That's what they enforce. They go out there and enforce that, but I'm going to hit the word compliance several times because that's what they want, compliance. And you're going to see some stats on some charts today that show you, 98.5% of the violations come into compliance before they even reach the magistrate. Big part of their job is evaluating the private properties and the public properties that are out there. And then we're going to have a part here on how they go out there. It's either reactive, you call it in, or it's proactive while they're out there driving around and they see the violation. Once again, the primary focus is compliance. What we are looking for is the health, safety, and the quality of life issues that we need to address. So everybody here, you moved into your neighborhood, beautification, you want to have a nice neighborhood, and that is what we're here for based on the ordinances. Mark?
Good evening. My name is Officer Gibson. I've been employed with the City of Deltona for approximately 23 years. My employment started in 1998 as a permit clerk. My current position now is one of the 2 code enforcement supervisors. What we're going to do here is discuss a little history of Deltona's code enforcement. We were incorporated as a city from Volusia County in 1995. Although we had become a city, Volusia County was still responsible for code enforcement until 1996. Then the city decided to establish its own code enforcement department in order to provide a better, more efficient service for the citizens of Deltona. At this time, code enforcement issues were governed by a code enforcement board. The code enforcement board was dissolved in 2004, and the city hired a special magistrate to preside over its code enforcement proceedings. We're going to try to give you a look at our staffing history here. So what we have here is a graph to give you an idea of the number of staffing we had compared to the population growth from the beginning of code enforcement to our current staff population now. You'll notice as the city population continues to grow, the number of staffing has fluctuated. In 2008, you'll notice staffing was at its highest, but between 2008 and 2010, then dropped due to the recession. So this is basically another graph to just give you a different perspective of it and a different view. So this slide is to give you a visual depiction of the rapid growth in population in comparison to the growth of staffing that we have currently. So at this point, Danny Ron will continue with the rest of the presentation.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Danny Ron. I'm the Customer Service Supervisor for the Department of Enforcement Services and Building. I've been with the city for 18 years now, 15 years as I was a code enforcement officer working with these guys here. First clip we have here is just some of the numbers we had compared from one year to the next, 2019 to 2020. The top 2 categories is vehicles and lot maintenance. You're going to see more numbers here coming up in the other clips, but the vehicles and lot maintenance are the top 2 topics that we deal with in the city of Deltona. When it comes with vehicles, it's not just about the parking, but it's also about being inoperable or untagged. And the lot maintenance covers not just the lawn, but also the outdoor storage and debris. Here we got another picture, just another graph giving the same numbers, but in a little different format. All right, this year, 2021, today, till actually this number came out in mid-March, we already had 1,361 code cases just with the vehicles. Parking, inoperable vehicles, untagged vehicles, so it's huge. It's very busy dealing with these violations. Our second top category is the high grass and the debris. Debris, it's the outdoor storage, items that are not supposed to be out there. We would prefer them be in the garage or in a shed or within an enclosed structure. Last couple of days, we've had a lot of rain. Grass season is coming upon us, and we're going to be busy with those, trying to take care of those lawn violations. Now, how does a responsive city government achieve code compliance for the benefit of the entire community? Being not just reactive, but proactive. Reactive is complaint-driven. Proactive is being out there since the code officer is already out there in the field. If they see something, they want to stop and address it. Different ways to put a complaint through the city of Deltona. We have our number for the code enforcement line, 386-878-8700. Her name is Becky. She's a person that will take those complaints, also under solid waste. Another way to put complaints in through us is the My 311 Deltona. It's an app. Android or iPhone users, I've used it before. Very simple. It even allows you to put pictures in the cases too. I'll supersize. We have a city website. And throughout the website, there's a lot of spaces, locations on there that contact us for a complaint or a question about the city. If it goes to the wrong department, guess what? It'll still get rerouted once somebody sees that email, and it should come to us, and we'll address it. We have a direct email just for code enforcement, and that's going to becenforcement@deltonafl.gov. Being proactive, the officers are out there already. They already got a caseload of cases to do the inspection for that day. If they see a violation, if they have the time at that moment, they'll address it. If they can at that moment, they'll write it down somewhere. That way they can come back to it when they have the opportunity to do so. Door hanger. You've probably seen these, but this is the first formal notice that we leave at the property. We call it door hanger, courtesy notice, a warning. Three main things that are on here is the description of the violation, has how to correct the violation, and we on the very top, just above the address, is a time period. And for door hangers, we put it out for 7 days. We leave, 7 days. Let's say if I was out there today, today's Thursday, 7 days from today, I'll be out there just re-inspection that violation, and we're hoping to get compliance at that time. We do have space for other violations that are not as common, but there's a space there that we can add that one also. This is my flow chart. So there is a violation at this location. That first notice we're going to drop is that door hanger. We're going to place it on the front door or make contact with the resident at that location and then explain what's going on. We come back 7 days. If the violation has been remedied, compliance on their own, we close out the case. Let's say the violation still exists after that 7-day period. We'll take the next step. There's two types of forms that we have, which is the next step. One is called the abatement notice, and the other of the notice of violation. Now, when we do place these notices on the property, we have to post it on the property and also send that certified mail to the property owner that's listed on the property appraiser's record. And now with this notice, it's 10 days. We want to give the owner or property owner, the resident at that location, ample time to come to compliance. So that's right there. It's already a little bit almost 3 weeks down. We go back 10 days. We go back to the property. We're hoping we got compliance. If it's in compliance, we close out the case. If that didn't happen, we will be preparing that the next step, which is the notice of hearing. With the notice of hearing, we got to definitely post that property and send that notice to the property listed on the property owner listed on the property record, property appraiser's record, at least 10 days prior to the hearing. Ms. Angela Myers will continue the presentation when she'll be covering the notice of hearing in the special magistrate.
Thank you, Danny. Good evening, everyone. My name is Angela Meyer. I've been employed with the City of Deltona for the past 19 years, so I started here in 2002. My current role is administrative supervisor for building and enforcement services and hearing clerk for the special magistrate. As Danny explained, the notice of hearing starts when a violation that is being there, passing the door hanging and the notice of violation have not been corrected. So the officer submits a notice of hearing and the case is brought up to the special magistrate. The notice of hearing is sent to the property owner with a minimum of 10 days prior to the special magistrate hearing. Our special magistrate is a licensed attorney and also a member of the Florida Bar, and he is appointed by the City Commission with jurisdiction and authority to hear court cases for compliance matters, and he can also assess fines and order liens to properties. Our special magistrate is scheduled for every Wednesday, fourth Wednesday of the month. The violator has the right for due process. It means the magistrate will hear during the special magistrate hearing. He will hear the city, and he will also hear the violator and see what was causing him the hardship to come into compliance. And he will make his rulings based on the gravity of the violation, on the actions that the violator took to correct the violation, and the history of the property, or how many violations were registered prior to that date. The penalties goes from $0 to $250 a day and up to $500 a day. That's very important to consider, the fact that if you have a violation and if you receive a notice of hearing, to come over to the special magistrate if you are requested to, because the magistrate, he will hear your concerns and he will work giving you enough time to come into compliance. And if that doesn't happen, that's when the fines started. On this chart, we can see in 2019, we had 8,506 cases. And then we had 129 cases were presented to the magistrate. Before the hearing, we had 118 coming to compliance right before the hearing. And only 11 of them comes to receive fines because they continued the violation after all the amount of time that was given to it. So it shows clearly that not only in 2019 and 2020, we had only 1.5% of the court cases that have liens and had fines regulated by the magistrate. And in 2020, with the COVID, it was even less. We see 0.9%. So that shows clearly that the code enforcement is working very closely with our residents in order to avoid fines and liens on their properties and help them correct their violations. Now we're going to have Richard. He's going to continue talking about now and the future.
So, I'm Richard Lovett. I'm one of the Enforcement Services Supervisors, and I've been with the department since 2000. In 2007, residents are hit hard with financial issues caused by the recessions of 2007. Foreclosed and vacant properties continue to soar, and Code found themselves expanding their roles to combat these challenges. But between 2008 and 2020, we had a decrease in officers in those years. While we've had that decrease over the last 12 years, the Code Department has worked hard to keep the same quality of service to the citizens as we grew. In the future of code enforcement, we need to work together by building relationships and having knowledge of the community's needs. It's integral to a positive professional code enforcement approach. Code will be able to navigate the needs and wants of the citizens once they properly evaluate the strengths and challenges that they are facing. Code employees and citizens must collaborate on the needs and issues in the area. Citizens working cohesively with Code will help Code Department create a centric path to help correct the issues in their area. And when we say the future and reaching compliance, not only do we go for the Code, we also try and reach out. Code has worked with several different agencies, including some that are not on this list. If they are not on this list and you know about them, please come up, give us their information, give us a contact, who to contact. We'll reach out to them and see what they can offer to citizens, so we have new contacts and new ways to try and help citizens. So, one department, 3 missions. So, your code enforcement department works 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We found by combining the 3 departments allows for the code personnel to deal with the issues at the property. The city of Deltona is not the only one in this area to adopt this combination. Several cities across the United States are starting to combine their departments to be more efficient for the residents in the city. This is being considered best practices across the United States. Code enforcement officers offer support and enhanced quality of life while working to keep aging buildings, homes, and properties from becoming eyesores. So what you have here is your current staffing level out in the field. So field staff includes 6 officers that have more than required training for the job, 3 officers that are waiting to take classes due to COVID restrictions, and 2 officers that obtained the highest accreditation in code enforcement. So with this, I'll turn it back over to John O'Grady.
Thank you, Richard. So before we go to questions, there's a couple of slides I want to re-emphasize. Right here, so I was brought in to look at best practices, see everything that's going on. They already had best practice. Right here's the best practice. You want to talk about efficient and effective use of personnel, city personnel. 1 person, 1 vehicle doing 3 jobs. That is good use of tax money right there. And it's very effective out there because they kind of all run together. They are community service officers to the residents dealing with these. The other one I want to show is the, right there, when I opened up the second to last line down there, 98.5% compliance in 2019, 99.1% in 2020. That tells us that code enforcement is doing their job for the most part, and the residents, they don't want to be in non-compliance. So with that, once again, I'll open it up to questions, and like I said, try to keep it at the 10,000-foot level, and we'll go from there. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Once you get a ticket on your doorknob and, like mow the lawn, and then we mow the lawn, is there some note against our account that says we comply?
Danny?
Because I'm assuming once we get that card, it's tacked onto our
So she's
desk.
saying once she gets the card, is the case opened up even though they'll mow their lawn in a week from now?
Yes, the case opens up the moment we leave a note, the same day. Let's take it back. If the officer is initiating the complaint, that's the day If it's a complaint-driven, it could be a day or two prior to the day they show up at the house. Depending on their workload, that all depends. Hopefully they can get to it. We try to get the complaints out for the officers to take care of the complaints as quickly as we can. But it all depends on the officer's workload at that time.
But my question is, once we comply,
Yes.
do you put a little check mark by our address?
Yes, they open up a case, and then you comply, they'll close the case. But there'll be a case at that address, so we can always go back in case there's a repeat violation. Yes, sir, Mr. Starr.
So, I like that, and you tried to use that intimidation on me, because I never told you my name. But anyhow, you keep going on about parking, and if you want to go back and you can show the slide on how many parking cases you have. I'm kind of curious as to why does code enforcement and city people, employees, and law enforcement, why do they get a pass? Because we took ample evidence of not only code enforcement leaving their vehicle running with a door open on the side of the road, which, by the way, you do not have an exemption under state statute. You're not law enforcement. You're not first responder.
Do you have a question, sir?
I'm asking the question, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Why does law enforcement get a pass? Why does code enforcement get to break the law? I've sent pictures in of a Volusia County sheriff that parks his car in his grass. I've sent it in several times. But as a matter of fact, on my way here tonight, his car was parked in his grass. His Volusia County sheriff's vehicle was parked in his grass. Why do you guys give yourself a pass? Why are you breaking state statute, violating state statute, but yet you're demanding compliance of everybody in this room?
So I'm not sure I know what you're talking about. I hear the question. I don't know the individual complaints, but as I said at the beginning, if you want an individual complaint to talk about, come to us after and we'll look at it. But I will answer your question. No,
you said 10,000.
Nobody gets a pass.
Well, we've sent evidence.
So after this meeting, please come talk to me personally, and I will take those complaints and we'll look at them. Okay?
So you mean when we sent them to Mr. Peters, he didn't pass it along to you? What are you being paid for?
I will have to go back and look at that. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have some suggestions about compliance. Oh, I thought I'd tell you other than. I have, now see, it intimidated me. Some suggestions. Is this on? No.
It don't sound like it is.
You just want to laugh at me for holding this. See?
She did that to us too.
Yeah, I can tell. We want to illustrate.
I read through some of the regulations, and they're pretty anal. I mean, they're talking about like 2 toys. You're allowed 2 toys in your front yard. And I mean, it's really nitpicky. And we are not an HOA. We don't want to be an HOA. If we did, we'd move to a gated community. So when you're reviewing all of the rules and the regulations, if you could kind of tone it down, and some of them even tell you how many trees you can have in your front yard, I think that's a little, too much. This is, well, I don't know that, but it could be. Okay. Now, on the other hand, what I was thinking is we get, we're in our 70s, and it rains, and the lawn grows. We don't necessarily have the health or the energy to get out there to mow the lawn when we need to. So is there any sort of program, or maybe some of the city employees could come help seniors who can't afford, I can't afford to hire a lawn man all the time. I'm on Social Security. So is there something like that? You may want to think about that to help us out in compliance.
So there were a couple suggestions there, and I know you have more.
Yeah.
But as far as the ordinances, and I agree, we're not an HOA. Periodically, the city commissioners put a committee together to look through the ordinances and update them. So I would say as far as that, you need to send it to your commissioner, and he or she will go ahead and make that part of
She's
it.
here.
And then that'll be run through the committee. The second part is, as Mr. Lovett went over, yes, there's organizations out there. So if you do get a violation and you just talk to the officer and explain that, and we will try to get somebody out there. And there's groups on there. There are church groups and other type groups that will come out and help people that cannot take care of their yard. So yes, there are groups. We just need to know about it.
Okay, and one more thing. What are you going to do about short-term rentals?
Okay.
We're seeing them.
Yes, so that's been brought up several times. Once again, that's another great suggestion. Mr. Peters, the city manager, plans on addressing that as we go forward. He's already started talks with the commissioners, and we're going to do, I believe it's up, he's going to do what's best practices. So we're going to look around, and we're going to bring in several different plans, and I think we're going to do what's best for Deltona, because Deltona is going to be different than Orlando, or, you know, name the city. But so we're going to look at best practices, and I believe we'll make a whole committee together, residents, landlords, et cetera.
Okay. And one last thing. I don't want, one of my elderly neighbors, I mean, she's even older than we are, and she lives 2 streets down, and there's a situation where there are carports, and she was told she had to take hers down and clean up her yard, but like, you know, a half a block away, they were allowed to keep their carports. Now, I don't know if they were grandfathered in or what, but there's, you know, there is inconsistencies with, I don't know what the word, enforcement, thank you. There's inconsistencies.
So after this meeting, just give me the address, and we'll send somebody out there and address it. I can't, once again, as I told the gentleman over here, nobody gets a pass, and that's one of the things that we're making sure happens. So after, please come over and give us the address of your neighbor, and then we'll find the directions to the other house, and we'll look at that.
Well, it's widespread, but okay. If I remember her address, I'll
It is widespread, and as you saw, we went through how many personnel and staffing that we do have, and that's one of the issues that code enforcement is looking at. It's now budget time, and they're going to look at, for a city of 94,000 plus residents, what is appropriate to have this number of code enforcement / animal / solid waste. Once again, they're doing 3 jobs. So we're in the process of looking at that and working with the finance as well as the city manager on what is the appropriate number. I will say right now, they're understaffed.
Okay, thank you. You want to say anything?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I have actually probably 3 questions. The first one is, can you go back to that chart where you show the cases that went to magistrates and how many were closed? And I'm going to ask you about that 0.9% over there. Non-compliance code cases, does that mean that nothing was done? They just stayed open? And that, because I feel that should be a 0 at the end of the year. If the people are not compliant, then I believe the city has the authority and the legality to go and fix it themselves. Okay? So that's my question. Why is that not a 0?
The reason is because some of the properties, if you look around, there are some that are abandoned or not being taken care of, and the owner let it roll, even knowing that there is a cold case going on to the property, they don't take care of it. So the magistrate rules, give them some time to fix the problem, they still don't. So that's when they are fined, and the fine continues until they come into compliance. So that's the number we had, 0.9. It was.
Yeah, but I guess my question is, on that number there, that 0.9, does that mean that those houses, the homes, let's say if it's talking about a home, has it been abandoned? And people are not doing anything with it, they just sit there. And if that's the case, then the city has an obligation and a duty and a responsibility to demolish it also.
So once again, we do, and it comes down to health safety. So if the building, the property is in foreclosure, we will work with the banks. and then the banks will start getting the fines until they can take care of those health safety issues. But yes, we do have in our ordinances that we can demo them. And Richard, do you want to say anything about that? About the process? And it is a long process. It is.
Oh, I understand that, yes.
Yeah, once a property falls in disrepair where it's considered a health safety issue, then we'll look at go ahead and starting a demo process. And in that, and I will say it usually takes about 4 or 5 months from the beginning till I can get a company out there to start the process, start taking the property down.
Well, thank you for the clear explanation. Okay, I have another question. I get a violation notice on my door, okay? My grass is now 14 inches high. I think I want to go buy a couple of cows and turn them loose out there because it's great pasture land. So they get a violation, and the people don't live here, really. They live up in New York, and they get somebody to come by, cut the grass, and the grass looks nice for a few days. Now you get rainy season, and the grass goes up to 14. You go back, put another notice on their door, they cut the grass, and it goes back, and it repeats itself. How often do you allow people to continue to violate the ordinance and not punish them, or not force them, or not take it upon yourself to go in there and cut the grass? Because I don't want to look at it.
Okay. What happens with that is, like you stated, the first time they'll get...
Sir, I can hear very well, so lower the mask, thank you.
What happens is once we leave the notice for we got an abatement process. We'll leave it, and like you stated, they may live out of town, so we'll contact them by certified mail and so forth. Let's just say they don't cut the lawn by the allotted amount of time. At that point, we have a contractor that we'll utilize to come out there and cut the lawn. Now, the first time we give them 7 days, and then so after that, it becomes what we call a repeat. So when it happens again, like you said, it'll come back again. They live out of state, so 2-3 weeks from now, it's right back where it was again. We then go to what we call a 24-hour abatement, and that shortens the time down a lot. And then we just post the property. So at that point, and 24 hours later, we now contact this contractor and send him out there to cut this lawn. So that speeds up the process, so it's not every 7 days, but at that point, it can go to the special magistrate. So we do have a contractor that we contact to go out and cut these lawns.
Now, I'll have one last question for enforcement is rental property. Do we inspect rental properties yearly? Do you ask them to obtain occupational licenses? Do you match tax records, tax exemption records to your water bill to determine whether the house is rented or not? Because I see some properties around here, and I know because I do my own search. Sometimes I go to Volusia County tax appraiser's website, and it tells you there if it's homesteaded or not. And some of these houses are rented, okay, and they get homesteaded. When is Deltona going to take the reins on this issue and trying to rein in what the landlords are doing or the people are doing with the homesteads and renting the property, cheating the city and the state out of tax money?
Right, and so to answer that, under the leadership of the city manager, John Peters, he's going to take that on. We're currently, I kind of answered it before, we're currently looking at best practice rental ordinances that we can bring to the commission, and they can look it over and implement, and then it'll be code enforcement's job, and as well as several other departments, to take that on. Either it's a yearly base. There's different models out there. I don't want to get into the weeds with you, but.
All right, I just got another question, and this will promise you the last one. Dead trees. I believe that in Florida, the law says that if a dead tree falls and harms your property, is the responsibility of the owner of the property where the dead tree was. That's what I understand. Is that right? That's what I understand. So how do I handle?
I don't think it's, so it happened to me. So I don't know legally, but I know it fell across my fence. I was responsible for my fence and the whole tree that was in my yard.
Yeah, and you're about to say, if somebody else's yard has a dead tree.
Right.
Okay, and they won't do anything about it.
Right.
Do you guys do anything about it, about that, or?
Richard?
We do not have a current ordinance on the book to be able to take care of that. We do have it for nuisance sand pines that are hanging over the roadway that would cause, you know,
Mr.
traffic
Peters, do we
accidents or
currently
something.
have a city arborist or a contract with the city arborist that handles that?
We do not have a city arborist at this time.
Okay.
We are looking at it as part of the next year's budget.
But once again, a good suggestion. We will put it down. Because where I live, I had to call the arborist. They came out because we had the same issue. And the arborist could not go in the backyard, so could not make a recommendation, but just advised me to get a lawyer to send them a letter. So, I was frustrated, but we need to get a contracted arborist here.
It's difficult to be a good neighbor. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Peters. Oh.
I want to address the question about rental properties. We have done quite a bit of analysis with regard to the properties that are rentals, particularly, for instance, in the water bills. When the renters put the water bill in their name, we require a copy of the lease, so we have that information. We also are able to check other databases to determine if the property is homesteaded, obviously, and whether the owner of the homestead property is living at the property. So we have ways of doing that. One of the things that Mr. Paradise and his staff were able to ascertain from our data is that rental properties typically result in 2 times the number of code compliance issues, 2 times the number of crime issues, and 2.5 times drug overdose issues. So we have been able to show there's a nexus between the impact on the city operations with regard to code, crime, and overdoses. So that's part of the reason that we're looking at this program, so that we can address that. And rather than having residents pay the added cost for that, the rental license program will basically make the landowner responsible for offsetting the impact on the city budget.
Yes, sir.
I noticed on slide number 16 that, this is question number 1, I have a couple questions, but slide number 16, special magistrate hearing, it says ruling by special magistrate based on blah, blah, blah. My question is, does anyone who actually has read this or who wrote this own any version, any edition of Bouvier or Black's Law Dictionary? Because we don't have judges, magistrates don't rule. There is no such as even the Supreme Court does not rule. They offer opinions and decisions. So that I find quite offensive, that you put ruling by a special magistrate, because the special magistrate is not a king nor a dictator. And by the way, I'd like to bring up again, and I'll pose it in the form of a question. Has the commission yet done another vote to continue the special magistrate per the original?
Let me answer your first question. So thank you for the clarification. We will look at it, and if you are correct, we will have it on the next slide. So thank you very much for that. The second question was?
The second question is that the original motion and I've got a copy of the motion that was signed by the mayor. Mm-hmm. The original motion when Reichman was brought in was that his term was for 1 year and that he could only be continued by continuing resolution, which means a vote of the commission. Mm-hmm. Jane Chang, the former felon city manager,
so your question
went behind the
your
city.
Question is?
I'm getting there.
Rude.
Stop.
This is an open mic meeting.
Go ahead. I believe your question is, has the commission voted on his new contract?
No, that's the problem. Is Our former city manager, the felon, Jane Chang, you have 7 counts of felony voter fraud, for you guys who didn't know. She gave them a 2-year contract with a 1-year extension that was in complete opposition of what the commission actually voted on. So from 2019, he started in 2019, from 2019 through 2020, or no, I'm sorry, 2018. Through 2018 to 2019, he was actually legitimate according to the motion. 2019 and 2020, any decision that he has made, any verdict that he has rendered is moot because the commission has never, and I've talked to every commissioner, there has never been a continuing resolution. Why is he still there? That's my question. Why do we still have this guy who is unlawfully sitting there imposing fines and liens on the residents?
So your question is, why is he still there?
Unlawfully, yes.
Okay. So I know you brought that question up to Mr. Peters, and I know he is working on it or has handled it. Am I correct, Mr. Peters?
There's been no
Okay.
resolution. No vote.
Are there any other questions?
I said I still had more.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes.
One more question that I have is, I would like for you to point me to the actual law that you believe gives code enforcement outside of a permit. If somebody comes in and they apply for a permit, now they've entered into a contract, outside of that, please point me to the law that says that code enforcement or the city has any jurisdiction over anyone at all.
Okay. I'll get back to you on that.
Well, you don't know?
Oh, I know, but I'll get back to you on that.
Because I know there is no law.
So Florida Statute 162 governs us, and there's something called in Florida Home Rule that the commissioners can do regulations and ordinances.
Mm-hmm. And is this commission, is the city of Deltona not a corporation?
Yeah, they're incorporated, yes.
Yes, they're a corporation.
Yes.
So that means that the ordinances are bylaws of a corporation. Please show me how they have a law that states they have jurisdiction, and you can prove that they have jurisdiction over any resident.
Okay, I'll have to get back to you because I'll read
Yeah,
the chart.
and you're going to come up empty.
Okay.
Just like judges all over the country now are coming up empty.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? All the way on the end.
I've been in my home for 30 years. And when I moved there, the front yard, of course, was on the street. But all around me, the other 3 sides of my house, there were just trees between me and the other homes. All those 3 people have now put up fences, but they don't take care of both sides. The sides that face my house, they don't take care of. I only approached one of the people and told her, there's no way that I can clean her fence. And she got a little bit upset with me. But I had been told by someone at the city hall that if a person puts up a fence, they're responsible for both sides. Is that true?
So what we'll do is I'll get your address after this meeting, and we'll have somebody come by tomorrow, and they'll look at everything that you want them to look at. If there's some action we can take, we'll take it.
Yeah, because I can't clean their fences.
You're up. That's right.
Do you have any other questions? No, I'm trying to downsize and go back to, I'm a Yankee. I want to go back to where the rules are carried out.
I would like to let you know the Neighbors Helping Neighbors.
Oh, no, I used them, but they're overworked.
I know, but we're trying really hard. And
They're stretched.
yeah, and the other day we went cleaning a place, and we want to thank Mr. Peter for getting involved and getting everything figured out, because as a community, we want to work together with code enforcement to make sure that our residents are into compliance so they're not having to stress out over it. So I wanted to bring that up. And I wanted to, this is a suggestion, I guess, and a question. I was looking over the charter. I love researching, and I've been spending countless hours doing this. And I'm looking over the charter, the Article 2, the Section 2, it's code enforcement. And most of the ordinance in that article are from 1996. The city was incorporated on 95. So they're 96, 2004, and the one that I can find, which is the closest to us, it was on 2012. So I think that we have to go back and look at it because our city had grown. We're not an elderly community like we used to. We're more as a family unit where we have multiple kids, we have other things, and it's hard to sometimes keep up with all of this really, really old ordinances. And on that section, it says that the officers, and I wanted to read that part because I thought that that was very important. It is the duty of any person designated as a code enforcement officer to enforce the codes and ordinances of the city as enacted from time to time and amended by the city commission. So, my question is, and I know we're going to have the TNR program separate, but are those not supposed to be together? When a resident call and complain over TNR, but these residents are having TNR it's a different issue, and they're having, multiple code violations that they have to be carried on, regardless of this house being protected under the TNR. That's my question.
So let me see if I got your question right. So we go out there for a TNR complaint, and we see code violations. Yes, we will address the code violations as well as the animal control violation. Yes, that is part of our duties, which goes back to the effectiveness and efficiency of having the one officer with both certifications.
Okay, and I was looking and I couldn't find it, but there is a part in the charter that protects you guys. So if you go in there and it's a TNR house and you have to do a code compliance, please do so. If you get something from somebody in the commissioner telling you not to do it, that is against the city charter. Just so you guys know.
And I will say, and just to address the one statement you made about 1996 and then 2012 and I think 2014, the commission and panels a group, and it's in the charter how every so often, I don't know the number of years for the city of Deltona, but to look at the charter and to look at the ordinances, and we might be coming up on that. I don't know. I'll try to get back with you on that. I'll talk to Mr. Peters and get with your commissioner and say you want to represent. And I applaud you for getting involved.
Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for answering my email today. It was quickly. And one more thing, for the lady and gentleman that brought up this, we did have an ordinance number 28-1 2014, and it was repealed. It was chapter 36, and it was Deltona Rental Regulatory License Ordinance. So they were trying to do this in 2014. So we are in need of something like that. I just really don't like when it's like I rent, so I really don't like when it's pondering that, oh, renters are doing bad, Well, also TNR people are doing bad. So let's just put that out there.
Thank you. I need to set this up a little. I have a property that I understand the 5 or 6 trees that are on the front yard are part of the certificate of occupancy of the entire development. There are 2 green spaces there, and one of them is my front yard. Part of the reason I bought the house, I'm having trouble with my neighbors that they're not respecting the well-being of the trees, parking on their roots, cutting willfully, and I've spoken to them, but I don't know what my recourse is, that are basically, they come from my house, and I'd like to, if I have to raise elevation, I will take care of it. So I'm just not sure what my next step is in this matter.
So if you feel there's a violation, which it sounds like there might be a parking violation, you call in or email in the address and what you feel is going on. And I would suggest the best time of day that our officers can go by and see the violation, because a lot of times, if it's a parking violation, we will go by and the car's not there, because people work, people do this, people do that. So if you could give us as much information as possible, we will have an officer assigned and they'll go by, and if there is a violation, they will address it. And if there isn't a violation, they will come to you, or will respond back to you any way you want and tell you why there isn't a violation, or what we're able to do or what we're able not to do.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there, I've seen these signs where it says, you know, posted, private property. Isn't it always your private property? Is there a special advantage to putting up a sign that keeps people out of your yard?
Richard, you want to take this one?
That would be a question I would probably ask for the Sheriff's Department. If you're wanting to post your own property with a private property, which would be the best one to do?
Okay.
That would be my suggestion, is contact them and ask them that question.
Okay, because we're on a lake, and we have a floating dock, and we have the sandhill cranes are nesting on it, but then we got people, oh, look, and they all congregate and take pictures, and, you know, it's like, and sit on their docks for hours just watching us, you know, looking at us. And
now lost 3 chicks.
Yeah, and then we have the speedboats, you know, the little jet skis come around with the big wakes. Can I put up a no wake zone? I mean, it's a private lake.
So once again, that sounds like an animal control possibly issue. I'm just trying to help you out here with the sandhill crane.
The animals are behaving. It's the people that aren't.
No. I think they're protected, is what I'm saying. So people are getting too close.
Yeah.
So after this meeting, let's get together. We'll get the address. We'll come out there with our animal control, and if we need to get the sheriff's office involved, we will. So it's a team effort, and there's more ways to look at an issue, not just trespassing, but we have a federally protected bird, I believe.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So we should be able to help out.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
So, I don't need it, you know that.
Okay. So, as I got a few things, actually. So, I'm looking at this picture of, you know, these are the people in the field, and it's, what, 9 people? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. When I'm thinking about the size of Deltona and the fact that these folks are doing 3 jobs, that doesn't seem like enough people. So we're trying to wrap up staff, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and what is the level of service that we're trying to reach?
So we're looking at comparable cities right now. Palm Coast is one of them. And we're looking at other cities of size or smaller size. There's a formula that we can put together. We're going to present that to Mr. Peters, and it just depends, you know. So once again, we have 3 missions that we're performing. So some cities have animal control just with the county, or they have animal control separate than code enforcement. So we're trying to do the best hybrid while also being good stewards of the taxpayer money, and bring it to Mr. Peters and actually tell him what we need to be successful.
So what's the time expectation for?
The budget gets approved in September, and it begins in October. So that's our timeline.
September, October?
Yes.
Okay, so that means that these folks are going to be out in the field trying to do 3 jobs in one for the entire city of Deltona.
As they have been doing for the past couple of years. Yes.
Okay, they have been doing it for the past couple of years, but okay, I'm not even going to get into that.
And we all self-admit not as efficiently as we would like, because
that's my point.
Right, because we are understaffed.
Okay,
yes.
So so somewhere around September, October, and then you're going to have to go through the hiring process. So that's at least another 90 days.
There are ways to get around that, but yes, that is the
Okay,
process.
so the expectation right now is that even as we identify the proper length of, level of service, that Deltona shouldn't expect to have that until 2022.
So we've gone to the city manager and asked him if we could help identify some current open slots, maybe in different departments, that will let us pre-fill. We can't fill an authorized slot unless the city commission authorizes the city manager for that full-time slot.
Oh, I get that process. I completely understand what that is.
So we're trying to do things ahead of time, to hire them a little bit earlier and to identify other slots within the city that are open, have been vacant for a while, that we may borrow those funds until we can get approval of the personnel.
So how soon do you think that you will be able to identify what the proper level of service should be for our city? Not whether or not it's funded or not, just how soon do you anticipate having what the ideal level of service is?
Right, we're doing the behind the scenes work right now. We have 2 more meetings after this. We want to hear from everybody, and then we'll bring it all together and have 1 or 2 meetings internally in the same week. So I think our last meeting's May 4th. We should have something to the city manager by, May 11th.
Okay, let's just say June, question mark. Okay, all right, so, question, and this is completely, I'm completely uneducated, but, this city has had problems with code enforcement for a long time, and I'm just wondering, does it have to be code enforcement? Why can't the objective change? So instead of enforcement, why can't these folks be out here to encourage compliance? And along with that, because I'm thinking about, as someone is standing at the door, and I'm thinking about this couple up here, and they're up there talking to them about their grass. And let's just say that maybe they've been there before, they know these people, they know them by name, they know their situation. And now it's a problem, it's a repeat problem. Mm-hmm. Why aren't we identifying, and I know that you did mention that you're, trying to identify, resources out in the community, but how much emphasis is being put on that? Because we have a lot of social services out there. We have kids that are, neighbors helping neighbors. Kids are looking for volunteer hours because they need that to graduate. We have Boy Scouts, we have Girl Scouts, we have Boys and Girls Club. I don't know how old, Boys and Girls Clubs are. I mean, I know that I was still in Boys and Girls Club when I was, 13, 14. By that time, I was a mentor. My point is that there are resources. We have Neighbors Helping Neighbors that are trying, which they're doing an awesome job, but quite honestly, they're being overused and misused. We have resources here. We have nonprofit groups that are identified right here in City Hall. Why aren't we using the resources, the knowledge that we have, the resource that we have, so that if someone is at this couple's door saying, listen, we've been here before, you don't have a regular grass person, do you? Or maybe they can't afford a regular grass. Let's just say someone can't afford a regular grass person. Hey, by the way, here's a list of nonprofit groups that you could contact, and they might be able to help you. You might be able to make some arrangements with them. My point is, especially looking at, and I know I'm talking instead of asking a question, I'm asking some questions in there. But in looking at even the slides, talking about, there's a number of violations or notices that we give, and a large number of people become compliant. right? Even without going to the magistrate. So we know that people want to be compliant. So why not help them to get compliant? Why not have that information with you so that you're working more with people out in the community instead of these notices flying back and forth, and we'll try and find somebody. We have the information. The information is sitting here in City Hall. Let's leverage the information that's already available and maybe get even more proactive than maybe what's going on right now.
So those are some great suggestions. We do some of that. I'm going to agree with you that we don't do all of that, but our goal is to get to all of that.
Any thought about a name change?
Yes, there is. What would you like to call us? That's a loaded question.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, you know, it seems like you're more focused on community compliance rather than, none of these guys wants to be out here enforcing.
You're right.
So maybe, I don't know, change it to community compliance so that, you know, it definitely, a name change would create a sense of maybe goodwill.
And part of what we're going through.
Change the narrative of what the department is actually there for.
Right. And that's part of what we're going through, a rebranding, if you will, on this, and that includes the name, the uniform.
I like the name that Orange City has. They have Community Improvement Unit.
Okay.
That's a great name. And they have it all over their trucks and everything, and it's very nice. It's Community Improvement Unit.
I just have one more question, and this is actually to help this nice lady over here. Can someone from code enforcement please get with her and explain to her, help her through the process of filing for a Title III accommodation for anything that has a time compliant or a time element to it? Because she's entitled to a Title III accommodation. If she cannot get out and cut her grass in a timely fashion, she's probably entitled to a Title III accommodation, and it is your responsibility to work with her, help her through that process, and make sure she understands the process and that she can fill out the accommodation correctly. And just for the record, the new name that I'd like to see is unemployed.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes, sir.
Hello. I'm from New Jersey, and I've been here for like 20 years in Florida. I met with the guys in code enforcement when I moved here. I had a pickup truck parked not in my driveway, but in the grass. I lived on a farm. I didn't know that was a code violation. So I complied. I got rid of the truck. $60,000 truck. I sold it for $33,000 because I wanted to be compliant. I lost money on that. I also had a problem where a tree in the neighbor's yard was extending into my yard, and they called code enforcement because I was going to cut the branches. And if I cut those branches and their tree dies, I'm responsible for it. That's what I was told. Okay. So with the rapid growth that's going on in the city of Deltona, they have just approved 1 acre properties, put 4 homes on them. Yeah. And we have people now who have families with children, teenagers, that are parking in the right-of-way areas. So how does the city plan on handling that problem? Code enforcement, or the gentleman in the back, I'm sure, what's going to happen? How's that going to be handled? How are you guys going to handle that?
So I don't have an answer for that. That's another meeting. That would be the planning and development group.
I'll accept that. But at a meeting that I was at, people don't have that forethought that, hey, wait a minute, this is going to happen. So we need to hire more code enforcement. We need more staff to do all the paperwork. And how are we going to write violations when they don't have the area to park in? And this is wrong. And the city keeps approving more and more houses on these little lots, and I don't understand their thinking. The other thing is code enforcement. I did see something about water control or flooding. Well, the other day we had a big rainstorm, and I was going past the Amazon building that had been built, the Burger King, I think there's a McDonald's, a Wawa, and I went past those buildings, and then I come up to this area where Howland's been under construction for years, and it's still going on, and it was flooded out. Cars could not get through. I made a call to the county. They had the contractor pump the water out of that lake that formed in the roadway so that cars could get through. My problem I'm having is that this road is taking too long. I-4 is going to be completed before Howland Boulevard has any pavement put down. This is ridiculous. I was told by your city people here, because it was a low bid contractor, he doesn't have the staffing to get the job done. Okay. So yeah, today I went to the site and sat there and watched 6 men walk around and move equipment around. That's all they did for 5 hours. I watched this. Who is in charge of this? Planning board or what? They need to get out into the streets and look and see what's going on. They need to see this. They've got developments going in behind Lowe's. It's Howland, or excuse me, it's Lake Helen and Elkham. There's new homes going there, real tight, close homes. You're going to have a problem with your parking again, but that road is a mess. It floods. It's not designed for this. And the other problem, well, these are the questions I have. Do you have any answers on these? Or
No, but the city manager is right behind you listening.
Yeah, I know.
So I know those comments is not code enforcement,
Right.
but go ahead. The city manager's right behind you. You have an audience.
Well, sir, excuse me, but the problem I'm having with code enforcement, and I've had this since I've been here in Florida, is that your vehicles have tinted windows that are very dark, and they're not even to code. They're against the law. And they run around with these vehicles, and you can't see through them. So how are they getting overlooked? I don't understand that. Can you answer that question?
And they have no exemption under the state statute.
I understand, but why is it getting away with it? It's been for years now. I've been here.
So thank you for that. That'll be part of our rebranding.
That gives a bad impression when you look at the vehicle.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, I have one other.
Commissioner McCool?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yes, sir. You, go ahead.
Me?
Yeah. With
Chris
the microphone.
Anderson.
With the microphone.
That's me, Mr. Mike. What I'm going to ask you is how much money was made in 2020 by code enforcement? Made from violations, from fines.
Fines
Collected. How much money was brought in?
I don't know off the top of my head, but give me your name and email address after this. I'll get that to you because that's a good.
Could that be more public than just me receiving it? Is there a way of putting that out there?
So part of the rebranding is the transparency that the city manager
Correct.
brought.
Yes, yes.
And we are looking at where you can actually go on and see the code violations and what they did pay. That's part of the software that'll be coming up.
Because you're talking now, I can see it as your presentation is basically we got to hire more staff. And that's what I see. That's why I'm here. I'm being told that you're going to have to increase your cost to the city people of Deltona. And I just see the whole thing as a problem, you know. Our city manager, if you ever go down Howland Boulevard towards I-4, you'll notice that that road out there is not completed. And you have all these buildings that have been built, and they're completed. That's about it. I think that's all I got for you guys. Other than, let's see. Give me 1 minute, I'm sorry. Well, you know, like signs, I don't know, on Howland Boulevard, all the signs are marked off, knocked down on the mediums going into, like, towards the school. I don't know if they're addressed that because it's a county road, but it is in the city of Deltona. I don't know, you know. I'm just, you know, it's just questions I have, you know. And you're going to look into the dark tinted windows that are not legal. They have never been legal. And they shouldn't be on the vehicles. I see that. Well, thank you, sir. And congratulations on your new job. And this is what you're faced with.
Thank you.
This is the city of Deltona, and the residents really want to be heard.
Yes, they do.
We really want to be heard. and
That
we
is
want
what
our
I've seen.
We would like our committee to go with the citizens of Deltona rather than, the way things have been handled. Thank you. Does anybody else want the mic?
Actually, I want to ask one more question, because you made a really good point about all this, this high-density building that's going on. So you're going out, let's go back to parking again. Let's go back and look at those parking numbers. And then let's take into consideration the fact, how many people's driveways did the city take away? When you widened Howland at the south end, how many people lost 15 or 20 feet of driveway? And they had cars that fit there before, now they got to park them in the yard. Okay, how about Saxon Boulevard? How many people lost 15 feet of driveway when Saxon Boulevard was widened? But yet you want to say you can't park your car in the yard after we took your driveway away. Does that not just, does that not resonate with anybody here that has any common sense? That you cannot take the space that they were parking in and now say we're going to fine you because you've got to figure it out. And you still haven't answered my big question. I still want the governmental interest in with particularity for why someone can't park their car in their yard. And I want to know how putting down mulch changes that little strip of property to now it is effective for a car. I want you to answer that, and I want that. I think the public deserves to know what is the governmental interest with particularity. And all you can fall back on is we have an ordinance. If the ordinance has no governmental interest, the ordinance has no teeth. It's moot. Understand that. It's a moot ordinance. Stop going up and harassing people because they don't have any place else to park. Get over yourselves.
One question. You mentioned that when you have situations with high grass and I think it's abatement, and then you contact contractors to go out there and take care of cutting the grass. How many contractors does the city have in your pool for that?
Mark, do you know that?
We have one contractor. We put up for bid, and we have one contractor.
You put out for bid for each time that you have one of these properties, you put it out for bid, or you put it out for bid for contractors so that throughout the year as situations come up,
so like
you can
it's a
contact them?
three-year contract that we put out for bid once every 3 years.
Okay, so when was the last time you put it out for bid?
It was last year.
And you only had one contractor that qualified or responded?
We had one contractor that responded.
One contract, and tell me again, you just finished that process again? So is that true?
I didn't do the process. That was purchasing. The purchasing department did.
Okay, well, somebody mentioned that we just went through it. I'm sorry.
We did the RFQ earlier this year. It was the lowest possible bidder that was taken to the commission. It is much easier to deal with one contractor who has multiple equipment than it is to try to have multiple contractors doing the same thing. So that's the reasoning, and we went through the process. John said it was a 3-year contract. And so that was taken, because of the dollar value, it was taken to commission for approval.
Question 4.
Any more questions? I just want to say something. No, I don't need it.
But into the record. That's why we kind of put microphones, because it's easier to hear the record.
Okay. I want to get this in the record. We have $50,000 from TNR that can be used to get a new guy helping and equipment. So the money's there.
Anyone else? We're good?
How will I know what's been brought up tonight is going to be answered? The answers that we need. When's that going to happen?
They won't be.
I'm just. Who's going to answer these questions that have been brought up tonight?
No one.
City manager, or I'm sorry. How are we going to get our answers for tonight's meeting? How will we find out what was brought up?
I was going to address that when I closed.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to address that.
I want to point out real quick, since nobody here, again, in city staff seems to know, I'd like to answer her question for her. The lake you were referring to, that is considered a navigable waterway and is under the jurisdiction of the EPA.
No, it's not.
Yeah, even go check your EPA regulations.
We did, it's like McGarity, it's private.
It doesn't matter. It's
Okay,
still
listen,
a navigable waterway. The EPA changed
There's input and emails can be sent, so.
And the answer is yes, once again. If there's no place on the website, sir, we are making a place for all these questions. Like I said, this is our 5th meeting. A lot of great questions have come up, and we're going to put them down there, put them with the answers, and then move forward. This is your city.
Are we a little too busy right now? Maybe what month? Next month? I'll be able to read this, or?
I'm going to work with our communications department tomorrow, and we're going to get a spot on the website and get it up there, hook or crook. I mean, if there's not already a spot on the website in a city this size, there should be. So we're going to make it happen.
So there'll be a code employee or tonight's meeting?
I would like to, so we have Deltona TV, and maybe somewhere on their side, where the meeting, you can play the meeting back, and maybe questions from the meeting, that type of thing.
So, first of all, I would like to thank the residents for coming out. And I would like to thank you for continuing to ask hard questions. The kind of questions that make you squirm, makes me squirm in my seat. Do you know why? Because you make me do my job, and you help me make the city better when you do this. So I encourage this as I am your commissioner. I really do want every single concern that you have about your quality of living, about what we can do to be better. Listen, we're not always going to agree. We're not always going to agree. We have such a mixture of residents in this city. We've grown so much. We have an elderly population, right? We have teenagers. You're right. We have teenagers that are parking, and these families are growing, and we're getting more and more people, and we have to be changing. And at some of our last meetings, we were talking about our ordinance review, our charter review, we're going to work on that to reflect the times that we live in right now. We'll have residents on this charter review committee that are asking the same hard questions. Maintaining the life that you've gotten to know, combined with where we need to go and what we need to be. And I don't know if some of you know this, but we've been having these hard conversations about no longer calling code enforcement, because we need to do more outreach. We need to do more listening and understanding, and we're heading in that direction. We have really good people, and sometimes I think that what gets lost is there's different management styles that need to be considered, and sometimes we forget to listen, but we're doing that. The city manager has been on the job 4 months now, and as someone who is first and foremost a resident and have been an advocate and an activist in the city of Deltona, because I got into government here as a pissed off resident, but have learned that we work better together. We can have opposing views, but we can also fix stuff, and that's what we've been doing. But we don't get there unless we ask the hard questions and have residents come out. So I would like to say that I am going to give each and every one of you my card. Again, some of you have me on speed dial, and that's a great thing. I'm always accessible. If I don't get back to you, I try to make it my job to get back to you at the end of the business day, okay? If not, certainly the next day, okay? I answer emails, I answer phone calls, and I answer phone calls at all times of the night. If we have a resident in crisis in my district, I want to know. And you know what? Each crisis to you is specific to you, okay? So call me about these concerns. I really do want to help, and so does the city. I want to thank, you know, Mr. Peters and the residents for turning the tide, because we can't change unless we know what we need to change, right? And, you know, planning, building, and our code enforcement that wants to be better. Listen, we have long-tenured people here, and that's what you want. You want people with legacy knowledge, and you want new people to bring in ideas also. So I'm going to...
I'm sorry, I gotta make a plug for the strategic planning meeting.
Okay. Go ahead.
So, our strategic planning meeting coming up on the 26th, Monday. I hope everyone is planning on attending because it's so extremely important. You know, we've had these, you know, this is a perfect example tonight. You know, we've had the opportunity to, on an open mic, ask our questions. You know, there's no agenda. And the last time that this city had an open mic strategic planning meeting was in 2017. And less than 30 people participated in those meetings. There's going to be questions like, what do you want to see? How do you want to see the city described? What words don't you want to use in the city? What words don't you want to see used to describe the city? What do we have now that you want to keep? What do we don't have at all? And what are the concerns that you want to talk to your neighbors about? So it's very, very generalized. And it's an opportunity to, somebody said we want to be heard. This is one of the best opportunities that we will have to be heard in this city. It's no agenda, it's not a commission meeting, it's our meeting. So, you know, please tell your friends and, you know, bring somebody with you because it's an extremely important meeting for Deltona. It's an extremely important meeting for us, not for the leadership. It's an important meeting for residents. So, thank you very much, Dana.
Last of all, again, I want to give you personally my card so that you feel you have access to me because you do, okay? And thank you, Mr. O'Grady, for also helping turn the tide and answer difficult questions because residents deserve to know. You know, government's not always pleasant, but we get there. We don't get there from shying away from difficulty. We plow through it, and I think that that's what we've been doing. I think that that is the role model that Mr. Peters has set up, and your commission has also set up that we plow ahead. So if I can be of service, I'm here for you. Thank you, Mr. O'Grady.
So that will be it. Thank you. That concludes our meeting. A couple of you, the three over here, had individual concerns. If anybody else, you can come on up and talk to Supervisor Gibson. Thank you.
A little bit.